This was my backup mower. Now it's my main mower for a bit. It's a 312 8-speed, a 12 horsepower Kohler engine, and an 8-speed transmission. This deck came from a different wheel horse. I like it because it's a rear discharge style. The grass doesn't blow out on the right side or the left side. You can mow close to things on both sides. The only bad thing about this tractor is it's a little bit top heavy, so I can't use it in the ditch out front by the road. I want to make an adjustment to this clutch rod. The problem is the belt don't engage until the pedal comes up a long ways. So there's a lot of wasted travel, and it's harder to feel or remember when the belt's going to engage. To fix that problem, I want to adjust the clutch rod so the pedal is lower when it's released. To make that adjustment, I want to take off the front of the rod and unscrew it some more. The problem is there's no more threads back here to allow it to unscrew. Some would argue that the belt's worn out or too long. I don't dispute that fact, but I looked at the belt and it's still good for a while, not bottomed out in the pulleys, so I want to keep using it. I'm going to put more threads on that rod so I can unscrew it some more and make the adjustment. It looks like if it was an inch longer, the pedal would be lower than it should be. If I put the pedal where I want it, it looks like 3/4 of an inch would be just enough, so I'm going to add an inch of threads to this rod. I'm going to draw some lines on this piece of cardboard. That marks the center of the clutch pedal hole. Down here I can mark the total length and where the threads start. Now I want to make it an inch longer. When I weld a new piece on there, I have to weld it before the threads start, so I'm going to cut it about there. My new piece of threaded rod has to be that long, about 3 3/4 inches, so I'll probably end up with about 4 inches added on. I'm going to mark on the rod where I want to cut it. Now to weld these two pieces together, I'm going to grind an angle on the end so both parts just touch in the center. That's that one. Now I'll do just one end of the threaded rod the same way. I need to hold these in position point to point. So I have these two V-blocks. They're a matched pair, so they're both the same size. I want to hold them in the vise, but the clamps get in the way. So I'll stack some junk under them. Just gotta make sure the junk's flat. This is a smaller rod that I'm working with, so I'll use the smaller side of the V-block. I want the welded area halfway between the V-blocks. That looks like that'll work. This would work nicely if both rods were the same diameter, but the threaded rod is about 12 thousandths smaller than the straight rod. I need to raise up one V-block by half of that distance. So I have a 6 thousandths piece of shim stock here. I'll put that under one side. Snug up the vise and tap everything down. Now I'm feeling all the parts to make sure the V-blocks are bottomed out. That looks good. I'm going to start right in the center and try to melt those points together first. Then build it up on one side. I don't start at the top because I can't get to the bottom. I start on one side and then go to the other side. I let it totally cool before I unclamp it. The bottom should be all that's left. Now I'm looking for any low spots that I need to fill in. That looks okay. I like to wire brush after welding to get rid of the discoloration. Here's where the old threaded piece was. I think I'll mark it at 4 inches. I sure would hate to cut it short now. I'm gonna add another 1/2 inch. There's plenty of room in there for it to stick out a little bit. First I make the end flat. Now I'm making a 45-degree angle on the bottom. And it has to be big enough that the threads start on that new chamfer. Now I change to less of an angle. And just touch the top of the first thread. I run it on the wire wheel until I can't feel any sharp edges. Now I'm going to get rid of that excess weld on there. I'm feeding this back and forth by hand as I move the tool in a little bit each time. When I get close, I have to stop and measure it. Then I know how much more to take off. I go down until it touches in one spot. Then I use a file to smooth out the rest of it. I'll use a threading die to fix the last few threads. Then it won't be obvious that it was welded. Now for some paint, just to keep it from rusting. I want to cover the welded area. The threads don't need the paint. That was galvanized threaded rod. Now comparing it to the drawing, that looks good. The threads start a little sooner than they did before, so I gained a little travel in that direction too. The rod's definitely long enough, because the pedal don't need to go down that far. There's no travel stop on the pedal. It's limited by the linkage. That feels okay. Except for that part about it sticking down. You have to push it down all the way to start the engine because of the safety switch. Remember, these newer wheel horses have a brake pedal on the right side, so this is no longer a brake pedal, it's just a clutch pedal. I'm going to move it in a little bit more. I think I'll try it there for a while.
That's what I'm saying.
I like that better. Yeah, that works a lot better. But the pedal don't come up reliably. Now that the linkage is longer, this arm can go back farther. It's hard to see from here, but there's a spring on there pulling it rearward, and now the spring's not long enough to pull it back anymore. There's just not enough spring pressure. I don't want to modify this spring yet. I'll try to find a different spring to test my theory. Here's a spring with about the same size wire. It's not as long, so I'll use this piece of wire to extend it some. My new spring is effectively about 1.5 inches shorter. I have this nifty spring hook tool to make this part easy. That's gonna work. There's enough spring pressure to raise it when it's all the way down. Well, that's as far as I'm going this time, and here's what it looks like. I'm gonna mow with it like that for a while. I might adjust it a little bit, but that's pretty close to where I want it. Alright, that's it.